Okay, sorry for the delay there. We're 2 minutes late. For people who are on the previous live stream, you may remember there being a bit of a kerfuffle regarding my child being ill. Well, my kid is a sharer, and I appear to also have that cold now. Apparently my bit rate is a bit high. Shut up. I don't know what that means. We're 1080p 30 frames per second, so I don't know how the heck my bit rate could be too high. Is that something I can change live? Oh, who cares? Whatever. If the video looks a bit weird, or the audio is a bit weird, please do let me know in the chat. Hi Mihai. Give me a little wave if you exist and you're there. It's good to know. Let's get to business. So I'm going to be doing more pull requests. I seem to be doing this every stream, and that's because there's always pull requests. What are needed? George says, lower your bit rate, mate. I'm dizzy. Oh, he's put the /s. It's okay. He's being sarcastic. He's just being a shit. So I think last time I got as far as this optionally fail when envars are in set. So I think we got as far as deciding that yes, this is something that we would like to have some sort of answer to. Basically, when somebody has environment variables in their config, but that environment variable isn't defined and they don't have a default specified, then we need to throw some sort of error. And I think that should probably just be a linting error. Although actually, if you specified strict env, so there's two possibilities here. We could either make this a linting error, in which case if you suddenly realize, oh, my config's got loads of environment variables that aren't set and I don't care, you could use the chilled mode to ignore linting errors and it would just all be part of that. Or what we could do instead is we could make it so that nothing happens, which is what currently happens. We just set an empty string in the config, and then if it breaks the config, then it breaks the config. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But then what this is an optional flag that you can opt into where it will actually throw an error if there isn't one. I think maybe this is the way to go. If I remember right, there were opinions last time in the chat, so I wouldn't mind being reminded of what those opinions were. But yeah, maybe for now this could be the way. We can't take this implementation as is. There's a comment to explain what's happening here. Basically, the implementation is to just panic, which I don't think is what we want to do. But it's because this PR is from somebody who's not massively comfortable with Go, which is fine. So they just kind of had a go, and this is what we have. So what I would do is, if I want to merge this, which I think is this is mergeable, what I would normally do is I would, even though I could quite easily just copy paste that code, I like to still add the original author, because I'm gonna have to make changes to this, so I'm gonna have to create my own branch and go back and merge it that way. But I like to make sure they get marked as the author. And because you can't just, what's annoying is I want to just be able to copy this person's email that they've used for these commits, but it doesn't seem like there's a nice way of doing that. If I take the commit, no, that's not what I wanted. If I take the commit hash, what I want to get is this person's email. But as it currently is, I think the only way to do that is to actually pull it locally. So that's what I'm going to do. Pull this remote branch, and then I can do with it what I will. We need to do a bit of mergy-wergy on this one. Oops, I should not have added that so soon. I've done a bit of refactoring here, so this is actually going to be a lot simpler, because we just pass the CLI context straight through to the underlying thing. Let's see what the diff looks like now. Nope. Sorry, this is a bit clumsy. Okay, yeah, so now we just have the bits that we are interested in. Going to conclude this merge, and then we can get straight into it. So what am I looking for? Particular part of interest is it this? Read file linted. What did they change? They changed CLI run, so they've added this flag. Actually, I'm just going to quickly modify that because I want to change that slightly. So we've got strict temp, I think that's fine. I don't think we need to add aliases. When a loaded config contains environment variable interpolations and those environment variables are not set, nor is a default value specified, an error will be returned and the config will not be executed. I think that's a fairly good description there. Right, so we've got a new flag, strict env. This doesn't do anything right now on this branch, what I'm currently looking at. And then we've got internal config mvars.go, internal config mvars. This is all a bit dodge. Basically, we've got regular expressions for detecting an environment variable, but then also an escaped thing of the same syntax, which is a bit loopy, bit odd. It's not broken. It's been that way for a long time. Nobody's complained about it, but I'm not sure it's a particularly good idea. So we've got this new field, prevent empty envars, which I think is fine. Prevent empty envars, but now this function needs to be able to return an error. Now the interesting bit, so the key reason why this person looks like they opted to do a panic is because we're executing these replacements within replace all func. So the call where you just give it a set of bytes called upon a regular expression, and then all instances of that regular expression will essentially be given the section of the slice that matches the bytes, which we're calling content here in our closure. And then what we return is that same closure but replaced with whatever we want to replace it with. So under normal operation, that would be the value of the environment variable, but when the environment variable don't exist and we want to prevent it from continuing, what do we do then? Oh! What I would suggest we do is we populate this error, but then what if multiple environment variables aren't set? Oh! Well, if we're using Go 1.20, Go multi-error, there is now a multi-error thing. Let's just go in the Go errors package. Is it errors? I'm assuming it's in here somewhere. Yeah, so you can now join. So what I would like to have happen is you do all the replacing. We don't have to exit early if there's an error, because it's fairly harmless to just carry on dropping the replacements in. So what I would want to have is if we specified that we want to prevent the MTM variables, and there are multiple interpolations here that have failed because of that, I just want to populate this error with like a joined error that says this variable wasn't set, this variable wasn't set, this variable wasn't set. What are you going to do about it? Rather than just either the first or the last or whatever. So I've been writing Golang since 1.5 years, and I'm trying to get better with it, to switch from beginner to intermediate level, and I figured that contributing to a big project it's generally a good way. I mean, it's definitely throwing yourself in the deep end to do changes and stuff, but yeah, I mean, it's generally a good idea to just, ideally, you want to make a moderate change to a big project and then have them give you good feedback on it. Which, you know, we try and do when we can, but it's not always, we're not particularly fast at that anymore. I used to be really quick. If somebody opened a PR, I'd be really quick to get on it. What I would do though was probably quite bad. Rather than reviewing the PR and giving you feedback on it, I would just take it, change it into whatever I want, and then check it back in, because that was usually quicker. Which is kind of cool because you can see what I changed to, you know, maybe get some sort of feedback that way. But it's not as like direct as just giving straight up feedback. But yeah, it's not a particularly easy, it's not a particularly friendly way of learning. You're kind of getting thrown in the deep end, and then for the most part you're going to be left to your own devices just because of time constraints. I mean, personally, if I'm learning a new language, I will just do small projects and slowly build them up in size and scope, even if it's something you've implemented before. Now I'm going to make a controversial decision here. Rather than having a variable prevent empty mvars and changing our behavior based on that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm always going to populate the returned error with these empty mvars issues. I'm going to have a custom type though. Let's call this missing nvar. Missing nvar. And this is going to be an error type that we're going to populate here. And if things don't care, if things have called replace n variables and they don't care about any issues that were encountered, they can just ignore it potentially. That's a bit dodgy though, because you would also expect replace to be an empty slice. So maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. Oh, I've got to think about that. Because it's definitely not something you'd expect. If you get an error back and you want to just ignore it, you don't normally expect to be able to just do that. I would assume that the thing that comes back is null as well. Is it enough to just add in the comments that, hey, you might get an error back, but replaced is still going to be a best attempt, even if something went wrong? Maybe not. The good news is this is all internal stuff. This is all within internals. So if we build something here and then we decide later that we don't like it, then we can just change it. Error on missing. Oh, I'm going to call it that. Missing envar. I'm going to have to go and blow my nose in a minute. Not cool. Now, there are caveats. This is going to be an interesting one for people to watch if you're not used to doing custom error types, because there are some caveats here that I'm going to have to address at some point. I'm just going to do a really simple. The following environment variables were required but not set, and then just e.variables. Or yeah, no, that's fine for now. I'm going to call this envars. Is returned when attempting environment variable interpolations where the referenced environment variables are missing. Error returns a rather sweet error message. Hey, people in the chat, required environment variables not set. Oh, we had to come and shorten it. Required environment. That just sounds aggressive. That sounds angry and bitter. Go on then. Whoops. Okay, whatever. Moving on. So this is what I'm going to return, and then we can populate it here. So missing vars. And then if... So I think I prefer error on missing as a input field. Missing var variables equals... Now we're going to do some deduplication here as well, because you might reference the same variable multiple times and it not be set, in which case do you want to just hear about that once, or do you want to hear about it several times? Here we go. Let's pull out that variable name so we don't have to calculate this multiple times. Okay, right, so this captures the fact that the error occurred. We could actually just... we could just do this no matter what, and then it's at the end. Because basically what I'm going to do at the end here is... if... missing varza variables, if the length of that is greater than 0 equals, and then we take the pointer of that, so it's non-nil, so we get a non-nil error, which is our custom type. So do we want to actually bother using this or not? I'm just going to go blow my nose. Oh, I'm so gnarly, I'm so gross today. Oh, sorry. I've consumed a lozenge. I've consumed pills. I've done everything in my power, and my body will still not stop fighting this cold. I am desperate for my body to just allow this cold to kill me. Please just let it run its course. Stop creating mucus. Just let it be. Real talk, these messages come out as one line in logs, and they can get very long as they bubble up and get wrapped. True. Yep. Hope that didn't drip on the keyboard. My keyboard is pretty... It's a good job I don't have a keyboard cam, because that would not be good content. Right, where are we? So, okay, right, we're populating variables. Are we going to do that even if we don't care? I think maybe not, just as like an optimization. That's probably a good idea. If nobody cares about the missing variables, then who cares? Now, the interesting question here is if we're bothering to check for the presence of variables, we shouldn't really change behavior here. Yeah, I'll leave this bit as it is. Basically, if you specified a default, which you do with colons, sorry, a colon, like this syntax here. So the environment variable foo, but if that's empty or not defined, we'll go with bar. Then it doesn't really matter. And this comment is valid. So they've added this comment to do consider reading from OK instead of relying on empty string equality signifying a variable being unset. So the reason why basically we treat an empty variable as the same as not being set for the purpose of you doing these replacements, and that is intentional. I cannot remember why. If that's standard to you, if you think that's a standard thing, then I would be interested to know what the origin is, because I remember at the time looking at this and thinking, well, what's the correct approach, and being told of scenarios where it's common for people to have a bunch of environment variables in some deployment system they're using, where they specify what the environment variables are up front. It will always define them, but sometimes you might not define them in your config or whatever, and then it blows up if the products you're using check for the actual existence of environment variables and treat that differently. I'm going to leave it as is for now, because that is something that we can obviously revisit at some point in the future, but not without a major version release, so it's kind of academic anyway. And that's basically it as far as me wanting to change this signature. The only remaining question is, do we still want to have this and just always return an error? But I think it's fine as it is for now. Now I'm going to have to update a bunch of stuff to use this new signature, this new powerful signature. Oh, it's so powerful. Why am I getting linting errors? I could not import. Oh, I hate that stuff. It's basically broken my IDE. Simplify this as well. These are very old tests. Anything that's not using the testify package is super old. So here in this test, I've set some environment variables, and then we're just testing a bunch of interpolations of various types. I might add some more tests. I think that'll be a reasonable thing to do since we've changed code. But first, I need to make sure this package compiles. Read fault env swap. Ooh. Okay, what am I going to do here? So this read file env swap, I think, is the actual one that gets called. Let's find out where. How often does this get used? This gets used all over the place. Oh! He is. Yeah, this gets read all over the place. So predominantly in our config package, we've got our own config reader thing, which kind of abstracts looking for file changes and stuff like that. But we've also got this little smidgen of code here in the unit test stuff, where we're reading unit test configs. I'm going to change the signature because, yeah, I think it could just be the same. These are all going to have to change. So the question here is, do I want to return... Oh shoot, should switch to using t.setenv. What is that? Yo! When was this added? .17. Ah! Okay, hold on. Let's just revisit what I'm actually doing here. So we're doing if Benthos _test _foo is defined, we set it to empty for some reason. I'm assuming that's because I want to check these things for unsets. Can I do that as well? t.unsetenv? Well, whatever. Okay, that's cool. So by the definition of this function, if that is something different, then by the end of this, during the cleanup routine, we'll change it anyway. Oh my god, I love it. Ah, so good. There's definitely other tests in Benthos land that require mvars being set, specifically in the unit test stuff, I think. So I definitely need to use that there as well. Oh, that's so good. Buy me high, loser. He's got stuff to do. He's got better things to do. Everybody who's still on this stream, what a sad loser. Error missing. So I'm just going to copy this into all the function signatures here. The only one that I'm considering maybe not is, so for this one, we give back linting errors, which are things that people can just ignore or not ignore anyway. This would be, if I was going to make this a linting error and not an error, it would get inserted here. But for now, because I mean, for example, here we've got a little UTF-8 detector thing. If it's not UTF-8, then we kick up a stink, but we do that via linting errors. And this is kind of in that, sort of in that area. Maybe we're doing the wrong thing. Maybe this should be linting errors. Maybe this should be linting errors. Oh, I'm rethinking the whole thing. Because if we want this to just be a linting error, what we can do is... So we would have a special thing here. This is lazy, but don't worry about that for now. Lint failed read. Error. Okay, so let me explain this. So we want to read a file and do the environment variable swapping. So this is just kind of a bit of a convenience thing, because I don't want to have to rewrite over and over and over again the same thing, which is basically we open a file, we read it, and then we're doing this UTF-8 check, which that came up a while ago, and basically somebody was trying to they were trying to run mangled configs with like weird encoding, and Benthos was reading it successfully, but it was obviously like collapsing certain characters, and something was happening that was odd, and it wasn't breaking the config, it was still valid YAML, but it wasn't doing what they wanted. It's really weird situation, because it almost basically worked, even though really you wouldn't expect it to do anything. So what I decided to do is, because I can't really magically read it properly, I don't know what the encoding is unless you tell me up front. It could be anything, but what I can do is I can just check if it's valid UTF-8, and if it isn't, I can give you a linting error. You might not care because it might be running anyway, but yeah, I give you a linting error just so there's some indicator of something's wrong. So we already have this little thing here that does that. I don't want to have to repeat that over and over again, so just the one place for all config reading code. And then the other thing I don't have to rewrite over and over again is remembering to do the environment variable replacing. So in this little convenient function, this is going to be used in a bunch of places where we're reading main configs, resource configs, string configs, all that stuff, unit test configs, any bytes that are something that Benthos is going to be running. And what I can do in here is, because I'm able to return lints, and then the thing that is using this can decide whether that's a real error or not. It might decide that any lints are gonna, we're just gonna exit the process rather than continue with it, or it might decide that we don't care, and that's a configurable thing. The user can decide that. What we could do is, knowing that the only error, this is obviously naughty, I wouldn't use this in production necessarily, I'm just doing it as a thought experiment here, but if we know that the only error that could come back is because environment variables are missing, and that might be something somebody doesn't care about, what we can do is we can try the strict way first. If that doesn't work, we add a linting error that explains that, and then we just do it again. We do the config byte swap again without that problem. Now, in reality, we actually get back the replaced valid bytes in either case. So what I could do is I could just shorten that even more and just not even bother with the second pass. This is all dodgy AF, because obviously anybody wanting to edit this, I'm going to have to add a massive comment that basically says, don't break this weird assumption-based programming. This is dodgy, but it's interesting to look at it. Just as I aspire to have something that's going to be this simple. But what I could do is, just to make this neater. So if we're going to do it the proper Go way, we make it so that missing variables error, if the number of missing variables is greater than 0, we need to return an error. And then what I can do is I could change replaced to nil, and then we return. So that makes things more go-y, so you can't just assume the replaced bytes are going to be correct. If an error's come back, you have to deal with the error and the fact that it's happened. But then what I can do is I can add this extra field, best attempt, which is the best attempt at parsing the config that's missing variables. By simply inserting an empty string. Let's fix that grammar. Simply inserting an empty string. There's a good chance this is still a valid config. Smiley face. And then what I can do here, I'll tell you what, we'll still do that. Might as well get rid of that. Okay, so what I've done is we still bothered parsing out the config in full, which is what we would have done in the olden days. And we're going to return an error. But when we do that, we're going to add this best attempt, which is the config with basically the fallback, just adding in empty strings. But because this is a specific error type that's going to contain that information, whatever wants to do the clever thing and just say, hey, I don't actually care, haha, let's just give me the bytes anyway. In order to do that, they're going to have to cast the error out into this missing vars error specific type in order to access this best attempt field, and that means whatever is doing this has knowledge of that error type, and it's not going to accidentally, like if we add another error by which this function could fail, it's not going to trip over that necessarily. It's going to have to deal with all the cases. So let's now get rid of this error on missing. This is what I wanted to do in the original case. Shorten that. Basically, the environment variable is missing, so we're going to add that to our missing vars error, and now that's going to populate our little slice here. Still need to maybe consider deduplicating this. To do deduplicate. Actually, we'll put this comment in the error string bit because that's where it actually needs to happen. Deduplicate the variables as they might be repeated. Yeah, so this thing is always going to return an error if any of these are missing and don't have defaults. And now what I need to do is to make sure there's no regressions in the software. I think this is the more correct function signature and behavior. But in order to make sure that there's not going to be any regressions, I need to make sure that anything that's calling this is going to be able to work around that error potentially coming back. So we've got a few places. mvars is obviously there, lint. So this replace m variables bit, that's obviously another one. There's a couple places in our lambda thing. Oh, this is when we're reading stream. Huh. This is another place we're using the replace m variables thing where we're getting stream configs with the stream mode REST API. So obviously those files that you post, they can contain environment variable interpolations as well. So this needs to handle that. And also our stream builder. So if you're using the public plugin APIs, then you might be affected by this. And oh, this is used all over the place. Ah, but we've got this nice convenient helper thing. Oh, I'm jumping all over the place today. What am I going to do here? Basically, somebody's using the plugin thingy thing. Let's deal with this one first, because this one's kind of like right at the edge of edge of things. So basically we return an error potentially from this now. If it is, then we error out. This doesn't work, I can't do it. Give up. But env missing. If errors as then we actually don't care. We'll just take the best attempt. Otherwise we return. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like for people who don't give a fuck. You've tried to replace the env variables and you don't actually care if any of them are missing, so we have a special case here. The error is non-nil. If we can't capture what the specific error is, we don't know what it is, it could be anything, then we would just return that because something really bad might have happened. But if it happens to be this config missing envars and we know what that is, then we could just take the best attempt because we don't actually care, and that will reflect current behavior. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a to-do here. To do, allow users to specify whether they care about env variables missing, in which case we error or not based on that. So that, because right now there is a method in here for disable linting. So when you're building up your stream programmatically, you're giving it YAML configs and things, you can just say, before we go any further, I don't care about linting, so don't give me any linting errors. And then we populate this field. So I would just add something here that just says ignore. So we can either go with the see you, George. Hi, Nicholas. Currently I'm coding and using Benthos. So we could do is we could either add a field that basically just says ignore missing envars, or we could actually just consider that linting disabled covers this as well. Kind of depends on how you view things, but whatever. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is dealt with because we've basically just reflected the old behavior. So now we're good. So the other place to do this is with the stream manager. Now this, we actually have a chilled thing that says we don't care about linting errors, so I might just borrow this. Ignore lints equals I'm sorry, but I'm going to need to... No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to need to go blow my nose again in a second. Right, nose blowy time. Woo! The funnest time of the stream. Okay, thank you for your patience. This is an exciting time because the baby is about to get put down for a nap, which is often preceded by crying. So we're just going to have to see how that goes. Right, so same thing here. We'll take the error and I can just copy paste this. If ignore lints and okay, so this is quite neat. So basically we try to replace m variables. If that gives us a non-nil error. If we don't care about lints, which the request query specifies, and this is a specific error that we know about, then we can just take those best attempt bytes and use that. Otherwise we return the error, which does a proper thing. And then we can reuse this rather than having the query bit specified multiple times. Now that should be all we need in this particular bit. But I think we use this multiple times. The other one is down here. Oh, I'm still really bunged up. Okay, we're gonna have something very, very similar here because we've still got this query. Oh, hang on. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay, here we've got a different thing. We've got request It's interesting. So that's basically the same. If what I know to be true is true, if my brain done it right, that is equivalent. Oh my god, I'm getting colder and colder throughout the day. This is horrible. I try really hard not to be snotty into the microphone. Please send help. Send somebody to my house with Lemsip. I need Lemsip on drip. Now! Right, where else are we doing this? Do we care about linting errors here? So this is in the context of executing a lambda. So an AWS lambda. You can specify config with an environment variable. So you populate an environment variable with your entire config. It's really weird. And then if that's specified, we use it. Otherwise, we look for files in particular paths. Don't actually see anything here to do with linting, so that looks like we just ignore all linting errors, which is fine, makes my life simpler. I'm just going to copy paste that blurb here. We exit the process in this case. So I'm not making this configurable, we're just going to ignore the error here. Might add a to-do. Make this configurable somehow, maybe, along with linting errors. See how that goes. I'm gonna sneeze. I'm gonna sneeze. If I sneeze, it's gonna bring this whole stream down. If I sneeze, that's it. We're done. It's over. I need to not. I need to try and not sneeze. Oh god. No, this isn't gonna work. Okay, let's try again. Let's get back to it. I think it's because of all the talking. It's making my runny nose a lot worse. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do gesture-based communication for a few minutes to see if that does any better. So, what are we doing here? Ignoring the error, that's good. And yes, we've just got to reflect the change here. It's only that same blurb here. Oh, all these places I need to make sure error isn't still non-nil. That'd be a bit of a doozy, wouldn't it? Let's quickly do that now. Nobody's pointed this out in the chat. Nobody feel like chiming in there? Useless fucks. I mean, it's kind of harmless leaving that non-nil here because it gets shadowed anyway. Maybe that's what you meant with your silence. But it's not good practice, is it? It's just not good practice. There we go. Sounds like the baby's nap is not running its course quite yet. Okay, so if the error is this thing, then the config bytes is equal to the best attempt. But you better believe we're going to add that linting error, and then error equals null. And then all that's going to be left get rid of that. All that's going to be left is unit tests. Just make sure the ones that we've currently got are okay. It's going to run all of them. Just here to leech knowledge. You're here to leech knowledge and like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Maybe his nap's not going to go as well as we'd hoped. We just give him 10 to 15 minutes. And if he hasn't chilled out and wound down by then, we'll have to intervene. I'm going to be out soon anyway, because my nose is not in a sociable way, let's put it. This fucking river of snot running down my face. Let's just do all the usual shit. Yeah, so I need to test for what happens when environment variables aren't set. We need to get those linting errors out. I need to do unit tests for ignoring those linting errors and not ignoring those linting errors. And there's going to need to be some sort of documentation update because it needs to be made clear to people that that's going to be a linting error now. Yeah, look, it's not even covered. Okay, dweebs. I'm gonna beat this into shape off stream later today, and then hopefully check it in. And then do another stream at some point in the future. I don't know when. Maybe tonight, I don't know. Thank you for watching, thank you for liking and subscribing, which you have done. Hopefully this wasn't too shit. And I'm going. Bye.